Good evening, now that it's 6 o'clock. Linda, could you please give the invocation?
Before each city meeting, I always ask God what message He has for us that is relevant, specific, and appropriate. But strangely, last night God gave me a dream instead, and its timing is significant. I was scheduled to pray next week. It was called today, so I believe I am meant to share it with you. I feel that it's relevant and powerful and totally a dream that I would not typically have ever dreamed of on my own. So that's how I believe it's not for me and of me, but of God. I dreamt I was attacked by a bear, and I shot it. It was within inches of me, but I knew I had to. I knew there was a message in this dream, and this is what I believe God wants us to know. To dream of killing a bear is a sign of victory. A bear attacking you in a dream indicates that it's time to face challenges in life without fear, and that we must fight against injustice. God will provide you with strength when you feel weak and helpless. If you feel small and insignificant, remind yourself that you're here to do good work and fulfill God's plan and purpose here on earth. And this purpose is far larger than you imagine it to be. Killing a bear implies that whatever obstacles you're going to come in your way, you will overcome because you have the strength to do so. In Joshua 1:9 it says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." In 1 John 5:5 it says, "Who is it that overcomes the world? Only the one that believes that Jesus is the Son of God." Lord, I pray that your words would pierce the hearts and minds of everyone listening tonight and would grow into a deep understanding of who you are and how much you care for each one of us. You care so much that you give messages of hope and revelation through dreams and scripture. We cherish this and are grateful for a God who meets us at every turn in our journey through life. Bless each one here at this city meeting and be with us through every discussion and decision. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Linda. So now we'll officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Borneman, Monroe,
Present.
Ross,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Busker,
Here.
Shadle,
Here.
Mizek,
Here.
and Berberet.
Here.
Thank you. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Monroe.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Alderman Monroe, the meeting is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess the first order of business is the approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. There are a couple of changes that we'd like to make. Change number one is an announcement by Kirsten, our Director of Development, and that'll happen right after item number 14. Also, we would like to move item 16 ahead of the executive session so that the folks that are here to speak can have their time and not be wasted sitting while we're in executive session for an undisclosed amount of time at this point. So do I have a first and a second for the approval of tonight's agenda?
Second.
Mr. Parker is the first and Mr. Ross is the second. Next on the item list are, sorry, we have to take a vote. Sorry. Thank you.
Actually, I had a question.
And a voice vote is acceptable here if you want to ask how many are in favor. Or
Alderperson
discussion, okay.
Borneman.
You're adding something with regards to Director Hines where?
It's right after item number 14. It's just an announcement of a new grant.
Oh, okay.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. So now we've got the approval of the minutes from the Committee of the Whole held on July 12th, 2021. Any comments on that? Any questions? I guess we'll move to a vote at that point.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion approved. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Excuse me, Chair, who was the second on that? Was it Busker? Thank you.
Busker. Yes, ma'am. Item number 6 are public comments. There was no one signed up, so we will move on past that section to the swearing in of new firefighter Brandon Jacobs. Madam Mayor?
Welcome, Brandon, and congratulations. It's not every day that we get to add another individual to a fantastic team, great group who we trust with our property, with our lives, because we know at a moment's notice that all of these individuals would be ready to respond, and there's great comfort in that. So congratulations. It's my privilege to be able to read your official commission. Official commission. City of Freeport Board of Fire and Police Commission. To all to whom these presents shall come, Brandon T. Jacobs. Having been duly appointed to the position of Firefighter EMTB in and for the City of Freeport in the County of Stevenson and State of Illinois for the term from the 9th day of August 2021 until his successor shall have been duly appointed and qualified, is hereby fully authorized and empowered to assume and perform all duties of his said office, according to the law and ordinance of said city, and all persons are required to respect him in the discharge of his said duties, by order of the Board of Fire and Police. Congratulations, Brandon.
Brandon, this is your certificate of appointment. To all who shall see these presents, greetings. Know ye by the authority vested in me and reposing special trust and confidence in the patriotism, valor, fidelity, and abilities of Brandon T. Jacobs, I do hereby appoint you to the position of Firefighter EMTB in the Freeport Fire Department to the rank as such the 9th day of August 2021. To the appointee, your appointment as a Firefighter EMTB in the Freeport Fire Department makes you heir to a long and proud tradition of fire department service. By accepting this appointment, you are charged with demonstrating those standards of performance, moral courage, and dedication to the fire department and the City of Freeport, which may serve as an enviable example for your fellow fire service men and women. Your desire to excel and to guide others must be boundless. Your appearance must be a model for others, and your performance must be a continual reflection of your sincerity, attention to duty, and moral responsibility. By exhibiting unfailing trust and obedience towards superiors, cooperation and loyalty to your peers, understanding and strength to those you serve, you will contribute greatly to the effectiveness and good name of the Freeport Fire Department, given under my hand this day at City Hall. Congratulations. Now it's your turn.
Well, it's my honor to be able to swear you in, so if you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Brandon Jacobs,
I, Brandon Jacobs,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of
the office of firefighter
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome to say a few words if you like.
Just thanks for the opportunity, and I hope I prove everybody that I'm willing to fit this job, so I'm very thankful.
We're glad to have you. Thank you very much. I'll take care. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we're going to get a presentation regarding the update on the air show at Albertus Airport, presented by Mark Menino. Mark?
I do have a handout, and good evening to everybody. I just tried to highlight some of the key points here of where we're at with the air show, and I can tell you that it's coming together very nicely. I think there's just been a lot of excitement now. More and more people are finding out about it. We've been doing a lot of marketing and Facebook posts, and we either have already done a big email blast, or we're going to within the next either today or tomorrow, I think, if we haven't done it already. But just going down the list, just some things. If you haven't seen our website, it's nwilairshow.com. That'll take you right to the website. It's, I think it came out really, really nice, and it shows all the performers on there. It shows everything you need to know about the air show. There's a ticket purchase platform on there. We're using eTix, which is the same ticket platform that they use for the Rockford air shows and also for EAA for the big convention up in Oshkosh. So we've got a real credible, real good quality ticket platform. Advance tickets are $10. At the gate, they'll be $15. So you can check that website out. I think, and I'm hoping that you're all impressed with it because it came out really, really nice. And if you've got any suggestions or any feedback or whatever, please share that with me. Just letting you know that all FFA filings have been made and placed. Everything's been approved. The ERP with the fire chief has all been put in place. So we've got, he's got it all laid out where all the emergency vehicles and personnel are going to be at the airport. We could use a few more sponsors, so if any of you know of a sponsorship possibility, please send them my way or please let me know, and I will go ahead and follow up with them. We've done a site plan map, Angie and I, Angie Jansen, so we've got everything kind of laid out where everything's going to be, the fencing, the barricades, all that has all been made. All the plans have been made. We've been meeting once a month, now recently twice a month. We're meeting this Thursday, talk about any developments that have come up since our meeting about a week ago. So, and just a reminder, Morse Group and Hammer Construction are the big show sponsors. As far as sponsors, I've listed them here, but I did not put Hampton in, but Hampton Inn is going to be sponsoring and helping us out with rooms. So we've got, these are all the sponsors that are already committed. We have several sponsors that have said they're going to sponsor but haven't turned in their sponsorship check yet. We've got, I think on my last count, we've got 13 food vendors, including the Kiwanis with their kettle corn, and also the Kiwanis group, the Noon group, is going to be manning the gate. So all of their people are going to be taking people in at the gate. So we've also working on a few more food things, but I think we've got pretty much where we want to be with food. And we've been real careful so that we're not having food vendors competing with each other. So every food vendor is picking 2 items, then that's what they'll have. They'll be selling, so they'll have exclusive of that menu item. And they'll all be selling water and pop, but we don't want to have any vendors, competing and disappointed and upset or anything. So we want to make it fair to everybody. Let's see, the Freeport Junior ROTC, they're going to bring us a bunch of volunteers, be doing a lot over at the fairgrounds with parking cars and what have you. Kind of keeping that cleaned up over there. The Girl Scouts are going to be involved. The Freeport Pilots Club is going to take care of the flight line, and they've already got their vehicles that they're going to use to patrol the flight line. And I will make mention that the Lena, the F4 Phantom Memorial that they're trying to get completed with all their fundraising, they're going to come over and set up a table type thing and promote what they're doing, and hopefully bring in some extra dollars towards their project. I think currently they're 40 or 50 grand short from where they need to be, and they have some federal funding that they're going to possibly lose if or federal grant money if they don't get the matching funds. So we're gonna help them out with the air show. Keep with the theme of, you know, the air show and airplanes and promoting aviation. I will mention, I did talk at the last meeting that one of our performers left our show for a 2-day show, but I'm happy to say that we have Bob Richards taking his place, and we probably got a better one with Bob, and he is phenomenal. What he does with aerobatics and with an airplane, it's just incredible. So you watch what he does, and you're going to think, how in the world can an airplane do that? And so we've got 4 really good performers coming. We've got a formation team of 3 airplanes. We've got Daisy with her big Stearman. It's big, makes a lot of noise. And then you've got the aerobatics. So we've got a good representation. And again, keeping to the theme that this year is going to be kind of a smaller show. Next year we'll have some seed money and kind of our footing, and we can make it a bigger show next year and keep going every year. There is a lot of surprises we're hoping to have the day of the show. We just talked last week. We've got a real surprise jet that we're thinking is going to happen. With aviation, with airplanes and these pilots and these people, there's just day to day things change. So really all the way up until that week is really when we can get some firm commitments of any extra aircraft that will be coming in and either being on static display for people to see and walk around, or actually doing flybys. This particular jet that I was referring to is not able to land at our airport, so that can kind of give you a little teaser here that it's going to be a special one. So he's pretty sure he'll be here, but he just wanted to clear up or check a couple things on his calendar just to make sure. But it'll be a special addition to our show. So we'll have, we have the 4 main performers, but we've got a local fellow that's going to be up flying, just showing his aircraft and what he's capable of doing, and just talk about it so people can kind of learn. If you have not been to EAA up in Oshkosh, the convention, it's just incredible what's up there. And I mean, airplanes of all different types, kinds, sizes, jets, I mean, you name it. So they do a lot of showcase flying where they kind of educate people what it is and what they do and what they're used for. So so we've got, a lot of them will be coming in the day of the show. We've got a big group coming of airplanes that are going to come here. They're going to fly here and land and be here for the show. Just a lot of interest is building. So I'm real excited about it. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope all of you are as well. This is something I think is going to be real neat, real special for us. Any questions?
Chair.
Mr. Parker.
One thing is, a lot of my friends don't have access to the website, so I need some information. I can tell them, what are the dates of the thing? It's not on your paper here.
September 18th.
One day?
It's a Saturday.
Okay, and all the parking is at the fairgrounds, and they're bussed up to the
Correct.
airport?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. City Manager.
Mark, how are the ticket sales going?
The advance sales are going slow. I'm disappointed, but yet not surprised, because a lot of people are not going to make a commitment on buying tickets until it gets closer. There's probably half of the air shows that I've researched do not do any advance ticket sales. It's all day of the show. So I really think that's where we're going to see a lot of people coming in the day of the show. We're going to be putting banners up around town. you know, in the next week or so. So letting people know about it, and I think a lot of people are going to come the day of.
Alderperson Parker.
The two things, day of the show, are the tickets gonna be sold at the fairgrounds or at the airport?
Great question. We were going to do both, actually, but we're going to do them at the airport only because e-Tix platform, with all of the equipment, the credit card processing machines and the readers and all that, we have to have internet access and Ethernet, what have you. So we're going to be doing all that at the gate, at the airport.
At the airport?
Yeah.
And, is there a rain date in case
No.
we have a storm? So if
No.
it's rained out, it's rained out.
Right.
And then there's a refund to the people that had the tickets.
No, that's a good question. Most air show, I think all of them, there is no refunds, there is no rain dates. We would honor their tickets next year at the show, you know, definitely. But then I think, Randy, I think that's an answer to your question too, that I think a lot of people are gonna hold out till they know, kind of get a feel of the weather coming up to it. But I think that's what's holding a lot of people back right now. But we do have some ticket sales, but not a lot.
Mr. Chair,
Mayor?
it starts at 1:30?
Gates open at 10:30, show starts at 1:30, yep. And we're gonna have a lot of things on the grounds if you wanna come early. Like I said, we've got, I think, 13 food vendors. We're gonna have some special displays. I'm letting, all of the sponsors set up a booth, and they may have giveaways, they may be doing things. You know, we've got some special kid activities we're trying to put together. We'll have a little kid area. Just, you know, with the F4 Phantom Memorial. There's a lot of things we're trying to get put into place. So there should be a lot to see and do. A lot of our sponsors will have neat, you know, be on hand or whatever, so.
And then do you have an anticipated length of the show?
Yeah, kind of thinking around 4:30. Could be between 4 and 5, but I'm thinking around 4:30 is kind of my time I'm kind of throwing out there right now.
And then $10 in advance, 15 at the gate?
Yes, correct.
And then you asked a few questions of if anybody has any thoughts on how would they contact you?
I've got information here, otherwise my phone number, you want me to give, I don't know what's,
Whichever's easiest for you, if you want to be emailed or phone.
either way. I mean, I'm all in on this, so you can call me anytime, email me anytime. Phone number is 815-519-3729. And email is my last name, MANNINO.SRA@sbcglobal.net. And I do have some literature here too, and I can pass some of that out if somebody wants, and it's got that same information on there. And the website has, I know the phone number, I think it has the or the email on there as well. Check out that website, and if anybody wants to give me any feedback on it sometime, you know, shoot me an email, whatever, I would appreciate the feedback on it, because I think it's a real neat, attractive, I was really happy how it came out. I put the challenge out there, I wanted I want to, you know, just like that wow factor website, and I think we got it.
And who's providing the busing?
North Central, I believe it is, out of the Dixon or Oregon, down that way. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact name, but it's down south there.
Awesome. Any other questions?
I did look at the website, Mark, and it is a nice website and very informative and that. So my only other question is, and I've talked to you about this before, do you have a committee? Do you have more to help you with all this?
I've got a handful of people that work for me that are helping me with it. My wife, so it's just kind of a few of us working on it, but we're getting everything done. I'm sorry, Brad, is it? Yep. Yeah, Brad's just done a phenomenal job on that ERP. So he's got everything all situated. Looks good. We're in
It's
good
awesome.
shape there.
That was my next question. So, security-wise, how are you with that? What are your plans? Is it Freeport or is it the Sheriff's Department?
You know, we haven't, we've kind of talked about, we really don't need any police on site. So we're kind of just thinking, I think everybody's a phone call away. The Sheriff's Department knows about it. I do want to meet with them one more time, talk about the roads and so forth. And if they want to have somebody on site, you know, more than welcome to.
Awesome. Any other questions?
One quick one. Is there gonna be any paratroopers?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Very informative. So next is a discussion on the ordinance implementing winter parking restrictions annually from November 1st through April 1st, including costs of towing, Chapter 46. I will start with the city manager for an opening comment before we go to Alderpersons Parker and Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This past winter season has brought us a lot of challenges in snow plowing and removal of snow from city streets. We received more snow than usual and issued a number of snow emergencies. For most part, residents heeded our call, and at times we went door to door to get people to move their cars, or we ticketed them, before we ticketed them. When the cars were towed, they were moved down the street. Our ordinance does not specify who is responsible for those towing bills. Under our current code, the Public Works Director can declare a snow event anytime it is anticipated will snow 1 or more inches within a 48-hour period. During the snow event, no motorized vehicles are allowed to park in the even number side of the street on odd number days. Interpretation: on odd days, you park on the odd side of the street. On even days, you park on the even side of the street. The current law rule also allows the police chief or his or her designee to tow vehicles that violate the ordinance. I think at this point is when Alderpersons Parker and Ross brought up a concept that they had about restricting parking beginning on December 1st of any year and ending on March 31st the following year. So I'll yield the rest of the time, Mr. Chairman, to them.
Thank you, City Manager. Who would like to go first? Mr. Parker, Mr. Ross? Mr. Parker it is.
I had a lot of concerns this past year with the amount of snowfall we had. When the snow ordinance was lifted, then people were parking on both sides of the street across from each other. Some of the streets in my area were so narrow an ambulance or fire truck could not get through, but they weren't violating the law because they were, the snow ordinance had been lifted. And a lot of other towns have it, and it works real well, so that's why I recommended, odd even days for a certain amount of time. So I'm very much in favor of it.
Well, excuse me. There's going to be me diddling what he said, Alderman Parker said, but like you said, the thing about it is when they park on both sides, it's too narrow. It causes problems. And if we can do this and get them in compliance of doing this, it'll work better for everybody. We just have to get into the mode of doing it and go from there.
Any comments? Alderperson Shadle.
The only thing I'm jumping in my head is there's certain streets that have parking only on one side, that these people would be every other day without anywhere to park unless we had some kind of provision.
No, the current ordinance states that the current snow emergencies do not apply to streets that are restricted right now on one side parking, and if the new ordinance would probably do the same thing.
Question?
Alderperson Burberry.
Just a general question. If during the snow emergency, we're going to park on one side of the street or the other based on odd or even, in order to help flow, what prevents people during the middle of summer to park on both sides of the street and the ambulance still can't get through? And it's the same situation whether there's snow on the ground or not. Or am I missing something? If cars, if it's
Well, in
Alderperson Parker.
my situation where it is right now, they're parking on both sides, but because they can park all the way to the curb and we don't have that 12, 14, 20 inches of snow we had this past year, that's not a problem. Because the plows can't get curb to curb, so that's why we did it, so. But right now, there's not a problem when they do it. In fact, they're still doing it in my neighborhood, but still, they can get through.
okay.
Mr. Chair,
Alderperson Mizek.
a question for Manager Bucas and I. As we recognize, how much of a concern have we had on vehicles being in the way during the snow plowing, like over the course of this past winter?
I'm glad you asked that question, and I'm glad we're having this discussion now because emotions are low. This past winter, we had some major issues in some neighborhoods and some streets where we just couldn't get people to move, and we did line up towing them. Unfortunately, our current ordinance says we tow them to a safe area, open area, but you know, today it might be okay, but tomorrow with the next snowfall, now we're towing them a second time. That's been a major problem. So we've had, like I said, major problems with some areas. As Alderman Parker pointed out, you know, some streets are narrower than others. So when you start plowing, you know, your street starts getting narrower and narrower. But that, you know, this won't affect it one way or another. It's too much. But yeah, we've had a major issue with people parking when they shouldn't be parking.
Alderperson Ross.
With this new ordinance, one thing I do see is there's a lot of vehicles that have been left abandoned, not say abandoned, but left not running on the streets, and they end up getting plowed in. They just basically leave them there. We do ticket them. The police department does ticket them, but still, this is going to help move them along a lot quicker, because otherwise they just sit there and they get plowed in, and that's it. So hopefully, like you said, this can expedite things, make the streets a little bit safer, and go from there.
Mr. Burberry.
Ornament.
Ornament, sorry.
You can't see my name, so it's tougher on you. I know it. It's
Oh, no,
like,
I was thinking.
yeah. My question is for Councilor Manager Bucus. Do we not have a general cost recovery ordinance under the code that would allow for, without having to have a specific thing in each ordinance, that the city is to be reimbursed for, you know, the cost of tow? It would just say, upon violation, violator would have to reimburse the city for costs expended or something along those lines. Is that not something? We have one for hazardous waste, but
That's a question that we'll have to ask the city attorney.
I think we do currently have a penalty provision in our code there, but I'd have to check on that, Alderman Borneman.
Okay. My thought is I'm all for clarifying, but it would make things maybe more uniform if we just had one section in the code that we could just routinely cite as this is what we're using to recover our costs. Maybe it's not appropriate for this instance, and like I said, I have no problem with clarifying this code, but it's something to look into. And like I said, we have something under hazardous materials, so it'd be language similar to that about the liability for abatement. And then my next question, if I may, right now the discussion is about whether to include an annual, just no parking, regardless of whether there's snow, or to have it be declared the no parking provisions. There's one or the other, correct? That's what we're being asked to discuss.
I believe so, that whether to keep our current snow event emergency or to have no parking on even odd days from December 1st to April 1st.
And it would be a situation where the police department probably would have, like anything, discretion to decide when they're going to enforce that. Because I know last time we brought this up, the issue was, well, let's say for, you know, X amount of months there is no snow and people still can't park in front of their house. I know that was my holdup last time, so I guess, I don't know. That's my thought on that, if anyone would like to address that.
Chair. Chief, you have anything you want to add to this?
Just, I've been here long enough where I've gone through both of both the snow ordinances. One where we moved every other time, and we had an enormous amount of complaints. On the other ones, we have neighborhood feuds, things like this, person's parking on the side of the street, and it's in violation of snow ordinance when we get called out to have to ticket them. It's hard to pick. When you have an ordinance, it's hard to pick and say, well, I'm not enforcing it now, and
it snows and a day later we're enforcing that without some specific wording in there, at least in my opinion. We had a lot of problems with that. The major hurdle that we have during the snow ordinances is that we have traditionally treated vehicles that won't move and get snowed in so the trucks can get through there and get those pushed up to the side in a better fashion than they had before, is using a 24-hour notice, which gives us, it takes 3 days to tow a vehicle, in that we notify the owner, give them 3 days to get it moved, so it still doesn't clear that up. There hasn't been a mechanism in the ordinance to put the responsibility on the owners and the cost on the owners if we have problem vehicles that we have to tow and things like that. I think that will change the behavior on either one of those if that cost comes back to the owner to pay for the tow, to pay for the storage, because they're not following whichever ordinance that we have. But we did have experienced a great deal of complaints the last time we had the odd even ordinance in effect.
Any other comments?
I just make mine, it's just, common sense says if there's no snow, you don't enforce it. Use a little discretion, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, right now it's got a current 1 inch in the snowfall amount, and it has to be declared, so, typically, by November, we're about 3.5 inches average, and then back into March is 5.5, and then each month in between, so, we're basically looking November to April, so I guess the question is, what do we want to do?
But the important piece of that is giving the needed teeth
Yes.
to make the tow when it needs to happen, and that the owner is responsible, not the city.
Yeah, 3 days seems a little long. It's way too long, in my opinion. But anybody has any other ideas or opinions?
Mr. Chair.
Alderperson Busker.
Yeah, with my experience towing vehicles, as soon as the owner becomes responsible for those bills, you'll see attitude changing, because a tow is going to be $100, and then you're looking at $30 a day storage. So that adds up real quick. They're going to change.
Chair,
Alderman Ross.
what is the minimum, okay, say we get 2 inches, do they go out immediately at, the street department go out at 2 inches, or do they go out at 1 inch, or what? Before they start plowing?
They're out once it starts, depending on how heavy it's coming down, will depend on how soon they get out. But once we have 1 inch on the ground, they're out plowing.
So it really doesn't, excuse me, so it really doesn't matter, what it mainly matters how hard it's snowing and how quickly it's accumulating on the ground, correct?
What we do is we watch the forecast, and then we're prepared to go out based on what the forecast is saying. And then once it starts snowing, we're out. We'll do a lot of pre-treating, where we'll lay throw some salt or whatever down in that intersection in anticipation of the snowfall, so we could delay maybe going out a little bit. But we basically, once we know it's going to snow, we get our trucks prepared and ready to go once it starts snowing.
Okay, and as the chief said, chief of police said that maybe it's just getting them into the behavior and into the act of doing it and getting used to it, because as Alderman Busker says, if they're going to be held responsible for all the fees and all that, maybe they'll get trained to do it and won't be doing it no more.
Our current ordinance says that at the second time we tow them, it's their responsibility to pay it. So they're getting a tow for free.
I think you have we have at least a consensus in some sense that needs to change as well, and the city shouldn't be footing the bill for it, as well as the amount of time. So I think the two things we've really got to look at, the amount of time that we're allowing them to sit there, and as well as that the fees would be from the spot, from that moment forward. So does anybody disagree or have another opinion?
Question for you're saying, so if we tow a vehicle, the very first time, the city picks up the bill? Because these are private companies towing it, they're not doing
Yes.
it for nothing. So the city picks up the first tow.
Yes.
That's gotta change, I think. These cities should not be accountable for somebody's ignorance.
Yep. Do we have a contract for towing, so it's set rates in those instances where they're called out? Or is it, whoever's called out, it's the rate that's their rate?
As far as I know, it's the company's rate.
Police department maintains a towing list.
Yep.
And then
I knew
they just
that.
rotate through it.
Any other comments?
Just to clarify.
Ornament?
They're being towed to just a different street. They're not being towed into storage, and there's no storage fees.
We haven't traditionally towed vehicles under the snow ordinance due to the fact that there's no responsibility for them. If we tow them, it's under the 24-hour ordinance, which then goes back to the owner because they've been notified that they've had to have that vehicle towed, or that if they did move their car, it was going to be towed, so they falls under the provision of the 24-hour ordinance. We've never had clear direction on who pays for the tow and how they're responsible, and the police department's budget can't afford to have a car towed a block away and drop down where it's already been cleared so they can clear that other spot. So we haven't used that aspect that I'm aware of in the snow ordinance.
Thank you. Well, just one more point then. I think we're all, like Mr. Monroe said, we're in agreement that the penalties should change. I just can't support an ordinance that would require the standing snow time or parking rules over an extended period of time that just in times when there's no snow. So that's my hold up there. I'd prefer it to stay where there's problems with the part where it's declared because notice doesn't always get to everybody as needed, and but I just think having an ordinance on place where you can't park on a certain side of the street for 4 or 5 months, and if you do that, you're violating the law. Whether or not it's enforced, you're still violating it. So that's my position on that.
Thank you. Agreed.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Meissen.
A question for Chief Summers. When you were sharing about the difficulties that you were seeing when we previously had the even and odd, when we did have the even and odd, was that only was that like through the several months, like 4 to 5 month period of time?
It was because it only affected those. We got a lot of complaints from people from outside the city who weren't familiar with the city. They would come into town and park on one side of the street and get tickets, and then we'd have to go through the process of dismissing tickets and things like that, because it's hard to do that with people who are unaware of our ordinances and things like that. But there were still a lot of neighborhood feuds between neighbors, and would call in, and it would take time away from the officers to go out and deal with the neighborhood issue and the parking issue on those days where there wasn't a need to be out there moving cars for snow removal.
Follow up. So as the cars have been placed in the improper place on the roadway, right? So they're not able to have plows come through or emergency vehicles. When that has happened and you're coordinating for a tow to happen, there's not in the past we've had a warning for that, and then after a period of time they're moved. I'm trying to understand where you draw that line as to where there's a warning, where there's an immediate tow.
After the snow falls, we work with the street department where they have identified where cars are not moving. We will go out there and we will, if we can say that it started snowing at 3 p.m. the day before, and you can see what the plows have gone around it, at 3 p.m. the next day, we will put a 24-hour ticket on that. We will try to identify who the registered owner is, and we will go talk to the registered owner. If we make contact with them, then they would have an additional, or they'd have 3 days after that to get that moved. So there's a lot of legwork in that. So that's why it's very difficult to get those cars moved in the way we're at. And again, there's never been clear direction on who is responsible to tow the vehicle a block away so the streets can be cleaned.
Sure. One last follow-up. So with all this information, understanding that we need to get the cars moved out of the way, would your recommendation be to have an earlier tow of the car? Perhaps the 24-hour warning and then the tow?
Well, I would think that after it snows and 24 hours have gone by and it's clear that your car's plowed in, that's warning enough that your car should have been moved and we need to get the streets cleared for those public safety things. I guess it's what's your pleasure on how much warning you want to give. But to me, it's obvious. Sometimes 6 hours later, 4 hours later, you can tell that, man, I need to get out and move my car because we need to get the streets cleared.
Sure. I'm sure that also depends on if the snow is still falling or it's falling for several days in a row as to how you manage that. Sure. Thank you.
Alderman Burberry.
Thank you. Manager Pukas, I haven't looked around town lately because there's been no snow on the ground, but do we have signs that say a snow ordinance in effect November to April, odd even street parking? Anything? We do have some of those around?
There's some.
Because picking up what the chief said, a lot of people from out of town don't know about it. And
I'm not aware of any signs that are posted around town that,
I guess my question is, should we be, and what would be the cost of that?
Well, our ordinance right now, though, it doesn't say that. It's only during the event.
During the event.
Right.
Well, how does the person know?
well, we send out press releases to some 30, 40 agencies, websites, et cetera, announcing the snow event, and that people have to, depending on the day of the week, they have to move their vehicles. And of course, people don't watch television or on the news. They don't listen to the radio. They don't have access to a website, and they're not on
Ignorance is
Facebook.
no excuse, okay.
So,
But how do
some
we
are
cover-
inside. They don't read the signs because they're inside.
There's nothing worse than having visitors come to town and get ticketed. You have to go through the work to dismiss the ticket. So somehow we need to promote it a little bit better once we decide on our action. So.
Alderman Ross.
When we get back to the notification, when this first started, I think we had spoke about, since there's not too many people to have all the access to internet, paper, we had spoke about putting a small card in a water bill. So when they receive their water bill, they got this notification about the odd need of parking, and maybe the ordinances or something like that, just to notify them. That's one way. Yeah. I know it probably costs too, but still, it's like a reminder. That could, it's a reminder that could happen. That could help them notify them what's going on at this time of the year.
Alderman Borneman.
Is this something we can use the Code Red system for? Are we using that?
We could use a code red, yes.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Busker.
Yes. Get back to moving a vehicle over to another street. Think about that too. Once a tow truck hooks onto that vehicle, that company is responsible for that vehicle's well-being. So, it should go to the storage facility of that company, because their insurance company is liable for that vehicle until the owner comes and reclaims the vehicle. So if we move it over to another street, or tow company moves it to another street, it gets hit by another car, that tow company is going to pay for that. And so,
Attorney Zito, potentially could the city be liable in a situation like that, since we had the vehicle moved and?
It's a possibility. There's a lot of intervening mechanisms in there as far as the fact that it's the tow truck company that's the one who touched it, but obviously at our direction. I honestly have never seen a situation, or at least none of my other communities have, a tow ordinance in place where it says that we're just gonna move it to another spot on the street. So most of my experience has always been if the police department is gonna order a tow, it's gonna go to a storage facility of that tow company's, there. I will also kind of just chime in, just as with some experience, and again, it's up to each community as to what they wanna do as far as how much notice they wanna get, but I've certainly had Public Works, directors advocate for the fact is, if you have, let's say, odd even parking, whether it's during a set period of months or odd even in the event a snow emergency or snow event is declared, right? And that notice is given however it's given, whether through Facebook, social media, website, and then even maybe posting a lot of times of signs at the entrances to the city that will say odd even parking in effect during this month and next month, or whatever it is, however those signs are. If you're supposed to be on the right side of the street on a given day where it's snowing and the crews are supposed to come and plow down that side of the street, they'll call the police department and say, look, I'm about to go down Main Street, there are 3 cars parked on the right-hand side. They're not supposed to be, because, we have this snow event, everyone, there. Go call the tow companies, they'll tow them off and they'll just take their first pass right down like they're supposed to, So again, that's, that's a little different than what Freeport's been doing, because in the sense that it's not really giving anybody notice in advance, but their point being that the ordinances are in place. You're not supposed to be on the right side of the street. Granted, you might have forgotten, you may have whatever, but our crews have got to get down there. So, again, Chief, I don't know if you have a preference as far as like when it comes to something like that, and maybe that's a conversation between Public Works and the, police department as to like the notice issue there.
I think that's more of a conversation that Public Works and I have not had at this point, and I think that's a good conversation to have.
Alderman Parker.
I brought it up just to get discussion, and we've had some really good discussions, but I totally like the idea that Aaron just brought up, is you and Rob get together and come up with something that works for both your agencies, and then bring it back to us, because I could go with anything as long as you two are happy with what we got. And I agree, you don't tow a car to another block and set it. That is as ignorant as I've ever heard. So, my opinion, thank you.
Yeah, can I just chime in?
Mr. Borneman.
Is any of us in favor of this towing to another street idea?
Not one.
So we can plan on that being not part of the change.
I think we also really need to look at getting a set fee for what that towing rate will be and negotiate it with all of the groups that will tow for us. So it's a consistent, I've looked through 3 cities now and they all have a set rate. It's a $60 fine, 65 towing in Madison. It's similar in Milwaukee, similar in Chicago. It's actually more in Chicago, which is not surprising. But I think what we do is we set it, make the rule, get it less than 24 hours even. I think if you're in the middle of where we're getting a 14-inch snowfall, waiting even 24 hours is too long, because I noticed Greenfield a couple of times got really, really gnarly. And I think some of our major thoroughfares, it puts people at risk. Then they're out trying to dig their car out, and cars are still driving by, and it's a danger to everybody involved. So it stresses our infrastructure from fire and EMS to police even further. So we need to, whatever it is, has to have the teeth to protect, our ability to kind of clear the streets. So I'm not tied to the 1-inch thing. I don't think 1 inch of snowfall is all that big a deal, but anytime you go over 3, it turns into a big time deal for the city workers, especially to get those streets cleared. So I think we need to look at some of the ordinances around us and find what works well for us and come up and draft it and move it to the next council meeting so that we can get it in place in time to kind of educate the public on what we're doing.
Next council might be a little soon. You might
Yeah.
want to put it maybe to the next committee of
Makes
the whole.
sense. Next committee of the whole. How about September?
I'd second that, if that's a motion.
Did the mayor make a motion? Can she do that, council? I think we need somebody else.
I'll make
I
the
thought
motion.
that was-
Okay, all right.
Eric, you made the motion, right?
I thought he made it.
Oh, okay, you seconded it, okay.
Okay,
There.
He agreed with the mayor's suggestion.
Yeah.
okay, that's
mayor made
much better.
sense.
Thank you. Maybe I just didn't hear it. I apologize.
Awesome. Great conversation.
Would you like a voice vote on that?
Sure. Yes, let's have a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda, discussion regarding ordinance amending chapters 480, 482, and 46 regarding downtown parking permits for residents. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. People that rent residential units downtown want to park as closely as possible to their apartment that they are renting. The City Council has authorized 3 parking lots where overnight parking is allowed, provided the user has purchased a parking permit and parks in the designated areas. Most of the downtown street parking is restricted to 2 hours or less. Parking lots, the time varies. Staff would like to amend the various sections of the codified ordinances to allow downtown residents to purchase parking permits and be allowed to park in any downtown city parking lot for 24 hours. The current parking fee is $15 per year, and staff's also requesting that it be raised to $25 per year.
Is that per month or per year?
Per year.
A typo in the memo.
Sure.
Mr. Borneman.
So this would allow residents to be able to park on the street outside of their apartments who live downtown? Am I understanding that right? Or just, this is for parking lots?
This is for parking lots. They can park in front of their buildings, but there again, we have a 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Restriction for street cleaning and everything else that we have, so they couldn't park overnight in front of their buildings.
You did say they can park in front of their building at night, or they cannot?
Cannot, from 2 to 5 p.m.
2 to 5 a.m.
Or a.m., yes. I'm saying p.m., I'm sorry.
It's all good.
2 to 5 a.m.
And right now, I believe it's only 3 lots, but this would change it to any city lot?
That's correct, Your Honor. That's
May
being
I?
proposed.
Except Lot 12, which is leased to Newell.
That was,
Alderman Shadle.
that was my question,
Perfect.
to clarify that it was, basically, we're just opening it up to any parking lot.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Alderman Ross.
With that being said, though, this may sound crazy, but if they go to plow the lot, would the vehicle get plowed in?
There again, they have to move their car within 24 hours.
Okay. But if the snow plow comes to plow the lot while the car is there within that 24 hours?
There's possibility it could be,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
yeah. But there again, by the ordinance, they have to
Yeah.
move they can't just leave their car there,
Yeah.
know,
It's
weeks
kinda
on
like
end.
a chance you take.
Right.
I mean, in so many words, with all due respect.
Right.
Thank you.
And then maybe that previous ordinance that we talked about could implement it in the city lots, that if it's there for more than 24 hours, it doesn't take 3 days in order to get that
Right.
towed, so,
It'll be,
you know.
move a lot quicker. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
what's the thought process of raising the rate from 15 to 25?
just the time and effort we have to put into it. We got to just try and recover our costs.
Sure.
Mr. Borneman.
Do you have an approximate number for how many of these have been issued or would be issued?
I believe this past year we had 1.
Okay.
Alderman Ross.
Yeah, manager, where are they parking now? That's the question.
The 3 lots are in now.
If you know,
Some are getting ticketed for parking in the streets.
on the 2 to 5s.
Yes, we issue 2 to 5, no parking between 2 and 5 a.m. a lot downtown. I shouldn't say a lot, I don't have the numbers, but we still have those tickets that come in. We see a lot of vehicles parked in the municipal lot overnight, across from 50 West Douglas. And some of the other lots, the vehicles are parked in. It's hard to tell who has a permit, who doesn't, and things like that. Sometimes in the past, when we've had the ordinance, they aren't displayed. It's not like a sticker. It used to just be a little cardboard piece that you put on your dash and things like that. So it's kind of hard to determine sometimes who has the permit to park downtown and who doesn't.
So, with that being said, though, but there's still a lot of 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. Violators, correct?
I'd have to look to
You don't
see.
know? Okay.
I'd have to look to see how many are there. I know that tickets are still being issued for that violation. I don't know how many.
No problem.
It just depends on the weekend, depends on the time of the year, things like that.
Typically people that were probably out in our downtown,
Mhm.
got a ride home.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, to answer Alderman Rouse's question about what parking lots to get parked in, they can park in Lot 4, which is on the south side of Douglas Street between Walnut and Galena. They can park in Lot 11, which is a lot across the street from, it's the block bounded by Chicago Exchange, Van Buren, and Douglas. And they could park in Lot 13, which is the northwest corner of Liberty and Stevenson.
Yeah, 200 block of them, yeah.
Chief, what's the price on the fine?
I'd have to look at a ticket. I don't have that right in front of me. I think it's listed in the ordinances, but I don't have that off the top of my head.
Manager Bucas, how often do we actually sweep the streets downtown?
We do it at least once a week.
Once a week? On a set day, or is it just a random?
I believe it's on Thursdays. I think Thursdays and Mondays we do it. We don't always do it on Mondays, but we do it on Thursdays. Depending on.
That's correct.
That's our Public Works Director. He has to phone in today, so Rob, you want to answer that question?
Could you repeat the question about the sweeper?
Yeah, what days do you typically do the street sweeping downtown?
Thursday nights.
Just Thursdays?
Yes, just Thursday nights unless we have some other reason to be down there.
I don't know if anybody else has thought about this, but I mean, we're putting a lot of restaurants and bars and things like that downtown. And quite honestly, if we're only sweeping it once a week, I mean, what really does that, stopping people from parking there from 2 to 5 Monday, the rest of the nights? I'd rather have them park there than driving their car home, to be honest. And I think there's better things for our police officers to do, but that's my opinion. But
Chair, we haven't been overwhelmed with people requesting parking permits either.
no, we got one.
So we got one, so.
I more worry about the businesses down there.
Yeah.
It's that, so.
Yes, but we also got to remember, in the wintertime,
Correct.
you got to, you still got to plow the snow.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Good point. But, awesome. Any other, Mr. Burberry?
So, if I understand this, maybe I'm misinterpreting this. There's nowhere downtown where you can park your car overnight, as this currently stands?
There is one lot, the lot by the senior center. We allow 24 hours. It's on the corner of Stevenson and Liberty. It'd be lot 13.
And we don't have a ride-sharing service. We don't have a reliable taxi for the most part. There's not to disparage any of the current ones, but there's a new company in, and we don't allow people to park their cars in most spots downtown overnight. That doesn't, to me, seem like a very, I don't know, all the buzzwords that are in our comprehensive plan doesn't seem like a very efficient government. I'm blanking on all the buzzwords, but I'm sure you're familiar with them. So I would be open to a bigger revamping of this policy versus just allowing for what's proposed. So that's all I have.
Chair.
Mr. Parker.
My understanding, if they live downtown in one of the apartments and they buy a permit, they can park in one of the lots for 24 hours. That's it. They have to move their car every 24 hours. Okay, we'll put this in a spec. What if somebody takes a vacation and they fly, say, to Hawaii, they fly to California, and their car is sitting in that lot for a week? Then they're gonna get nailed every day for leaving it in there for a week?
Nobody's getting nailed, Chairman, Mr. Alderman. We are not enforcing it whatsoever. For us to only have one permit, and you look at there anytime during the day, at night, there's cars parked in these lots. And that's part of the problem. We don't have the manpower to enforce it.
Yeah, which is
You know.
fine. I'm just saying, if somebody leaves town on
Yeah.
vacation, they're gonna get something, so. something
Now,
needs to be
this-
corrected so
yeah.
it works within what the police department does and what the city can allow.
I think, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think what what kind of brought out, what we're talking about the last issue and this issue is, really boils down to enforcement on parking, whether it be snow or overnight parking, whatever. We don't have the manpower to be out there every day writing tickets to every person that's violating the ordinances. It's plain and simple. It's just, how can we make it more simpler for us to administer and enforce?
I agree.
Any other comments?
May I, Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I get several phone calls about downtown parking, and if you read the ordinances, how they are, they're very conflicting. There is a newer paragraph in there that did allow on-street parking, except under certain conditions. So I went through the downtown parking map and I X'd off all of the conditions, which left no place for on-street parking. So even though it was added trying to accommodate, maybe like what Mr. Bornerman's suggesting, once you went through all of the restrictions, there were none. So I need direction when I get those phone calls. What can I offer them? Whatever you decide.
Well, I think we laid out 6 nights a week during non-snow times where it's not a problem. But it's those other times that, Thursday nights, but it's hard to say, okay, Thursday nights, no street parking. So, making it a reasonable law, or not a law, but a ordinance, is, I guess we need to go back to the drawing board a little bit and clear up everything and make it more accommodating so that people do want to move down there, come down and go to those businesses. And I think that's part of what we've all been working on, and we've all been, for a very long time. I mean, you look at Hy-Vee coming back, you look at the businesses we're trying to draw back, the things that we're trying to do in the city. I think it makes sense to look at anything that's archaic, that probably doesn't need to be that way. I can remember from my teenage years, the downtown was hopping on Fridays and Saturday nights. I'd venture to say that's not the case right now, and I think we would all like it to be that way. So maybe not the chief, because he gets a busy Fridays and Saturday nights because of it. But, I would much rather see people parked, 24 hours downtown than driving home drunk. So, I think we have to look at this from a common sense approach and kind of go from there. But needless to say, we do need to give clear guidance and clarity to what is going on. So I'd love to get the city managers and Rob's opinion on what they think is necessary, as well as then run it by the chief and come up with something that's much more clear and common sense. I don't know if anybody else has an opinion on that.
I agree with you.
Agreed.
What if they, excuse me, what if they went to, in those parking lots that are designated for the permits, went to no charge, free parking, but no parking on the street?
think we're doing that now.
Oh, okay.
We got one permit, I think we're doing it now. Not to be, you know, funny, but,
We have one law-abiding person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
well, no, it's, you know, it's,
No, that's true.
it's the thing, we want people to live downtown, because that's, helps make it lively in that, and that's why we're bringing these things up to you, because we're seeing these problems, and we're trying to hash through them and stuff.
You have a lot of experience, so your guidance on this would be amazing, you know. Mr. Borneman was first, but
Oh, you can go.
Well, it's simple. If it's that confusing for Dovey to interpret what all the ordinances say, that's something where our goal should be, is to make it very simple. You know, instead of making it so complicated. Well, this says you can do it, but this says you can't do it. And if we can't understand it, how is the public supposed to understand it? So I'd like to make it as simple as possible for Dovey to be able to answer them questions and make it clear for the public. Thank you.
I agree.
Yeah, so with that being said, I'm going to make a motion to carry this over to the next committee of the whole meeting with directions to staff to present to us some more comprehensive parking regulations for, I mean, this is for downtown only. So more comprehensive parking regulations for downtown, which may include on-street parking as it would work for street cleaning purposes.
I'll second that for you.
Mr. Chair,
yes, Mr. Mizek.
really to reiterate really what Alderman Borneman was saying is as soon as we understand there's a gap in the ability for even those who dwell in downtown to legally park there, we realize we have a gap and some areas to sharpen this, exactly what those guidelines should be. So I'm looking forward to cleaning this up.
Sounds good.
Gonna need a voice vote.
So, as far as the motion, we've got a motion on the floor to move this forward to the next COW in September. For all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor, say nay.
Chair, once again, I missed the second on that.
Mr. Ross or Mr. Busker, they both said.
Take your pick.
Mr. Ross.
You said Ross first.
You had a good looking guy.
Age before beauty.
We'll move to item number 12, discussion regarding resolution approving intergovernmental agreement with Stevenson County regarding water and sewer lines to Mill Race Crossing.
You skipped one.
Oh, did I miss one? I apologize. Oh, there we go. Number 11, discussion regarding ordinance amending section 1062.12, perpetual fund for cemetery. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The city currently has a perpetual fund for the care of the city cemetery, and the current sale of grave sites, which is $686 today. It was $400, and before that was, I think, $200 or $250. That money is placed in the perpetual fund, and these fees, and then the fees that we have for grave openings and other services actually goes into the general fund. Although the codified ordinances established the perpetual fund and the fees that are placed in it, the code does not state how or when these funds can be used. Under current Illinois law, money in a municipal cemetery perpetual fund can be used for maintenance, repair, or equipment for the cemetery, and that could be both principal and interest. What we're proposing is that the City Council amend Chapter 1062 to allow the annual interest earned on the perpetual fund to be used for general maintenance and repairs of the cemetery.
Mr. Shadle.
This is something that come up within the last couple of months, is it not? That when we had a roof on one of the vaults that was failing, and we had money out of a budget where we've got money that should be used for that.
That's correct.
And I would be all in favor of correcting this long-standing problem then.
Is that a motion?
Second.
That would be fine.
It sounds like we've got a motion and a second. Any additional comments before we take a vote to move this forward?
Did I hear we're only going to use the interest off the funds?
That's my proposal, just the interest.
That's what I thought you said. Therefore, the principal sits there for eternity.
Well, you can always change it later, but right now we only have $150,000 in that fund because up to recently, we didn't charge that much for a grave site. So we like to build up, and we're earning less than 1% interest. We're earning less than 0.5% interest on our money right now. So it's not
It's not a lot.
not a lot of money.
So we have a first and a second. I guess that all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any in favor or not in favor? Sorry. Any opposed? Thank you. None. So perfect. Now we'll move on to item number 12, discussion regarding resolution approving intergovernmental agreement with Stevenson County regarding water and sewer lines to Mill Race Crossing. Manager Bucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The City of Freeport and Stevenson County entered an intergovernmental agreement, also known as the IGA, back in January of 11, 2006. The IGA dealt with the development of the Mill Race Crossing project area. In the agreement, the city and county agreed to jointly fund the extension of water and sanitary sewers to the area. It was also required properties that received water and or sanitary sewer services to annex to the city, and if it was not contiguous to the city, that they had to sign a pre-annexation agreement. We now have before us a proposed intergovernmental agreement between the city and Stevenson County to provide water and sanitary sewers to the Mill Race crossing area once again. The county will be receiving approximately $8 million in American Rescue Plan Act, also known as ARPA money, and plan to invest $4 to $6 million of it in extending water and sanitary sewers to the Mill Race crossing area. This expansion of the water and sanitary sewers, the water and sewer to expand will allow businesses to expand into this area, and the county and it'll help the county to help market their property as well. The planned route along would go down Lamb Road, and I reviewed the draft IGA and the recapture agreement with Mark Williams and Adam Holder as well, and the term of the agreement would be until December 31st, 2034. This would basically be a 10-year term once the utilities are installed. The agreement includes language that the agreement would terminate if the county does not receive the necessary easements. The agreement also requires the county to acquire all the easements for the construction and maintenance of the two mains, and the county guarantees the payment of all costs incurred in the construction of the water and sanitary sewer mains and any other items that we may need. The current IGA from 2006 has the city and county splitting these costs. The new IGA also requires properties being served by the water and sewer, sanitary sewer to have to annex to the city or have a pre-approved agreement with the city if not contiguous. The IGA requires the Mill Race property to pay the same rates as the city residents. That was also true in the 2006 IGA as well. Something in the new proposed IGA is that the city paying 50% of all fees to the county for roughly 5 years, and that'd be until December 31st, 2028. The water and sewer line will require little maintenance during this 5-year period, and there will be a storage tank and possibly a well that will also be paid by the county in the future. In the spirit of cooperation, the need to have industrial sites available for new businesses and for expansion of businesses in the city and the county, and the fact that the city will have no direct capital involvement in this project, I support their request in this area. In the recapture agreement, the city is excluded from paying any recapture charges for city-owned property. The boundaries of the recapture agreement still have to be determined. The proposed extension of the water and sanitary sewer lines to Mill Race Crossing will be at no cost to the city. We will be given a $6 million asset and have the possibility for future expansion and future revenue growth. It's my recommendation that the City Council move forward with the IGA with Stevenson County to the August 16th council agenda. And I'm open to any questions.
Manager Bucus, will, in that 50% split of the fees, does that include the capital improvement fee as well?
Yes, it does.
Question. So,
Yes.
if I listened right and I've talked to Bill Hadley, there'd be no expense to the city for this.
That's correct.
Make a motion to move it forward then.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any other comments before we,
Sure.
Mr. Busker?
Yeah, with that 50% going back to the county, something should fail. Are they going to be fixing it, or are we fixing it?
No, we will be fixing it, but we're also going to be requiring them to put in a new storage facility for us as well out there, either on ingrown farms property or on the county's property. So they're going to have additional capital investments as well in this system.
What's the timeline of that installation and that project?
The installation of the current, of the water and sewer lines,
No, of the well and the storage facility.
we haven't really discussed that.
Sure.
It also, well, it depends on how fast that area grows too. So we're going to, once, we got to take one step at a time, basically. I mean, this has been a long process. We've been negotiating this for many months. And, we're a little hampered. We don't have much industrial land in the city limits for growth. I know that Greater Freeport Partnership has had some inquiries about that property out there, but there again, without water and sewer, it's not going to develop. And, the jobs that are created out there, also benefit our residents as well.
Alderman Ross.
So, if the county's gonna do everything, they're gonna be in charge of, they're gonna be responsible for all the hydrants and the whole 9 yards.
They will be responsible for the installation of all the materials, yes, the hydrants, the lift stations, the water mains, the sewer lines. But once everything's completed and we accept it, then it'll be our responsibility to maintain.
Our responsibility to do what again?
To maintain them once they're installed,
To the city limits or all the way out?
all the way out. They'll be our lines. They're dedicating them to the city.
Would then, say a resident's out there in the county who has a drain field, septic drain field, would he be allowed to hook up onto the sewer line?
Yes, and if he's contiguous to the city, he would have to annex to the city in order to do so. And if he's not contiguous, then he would have to sign a pre-annexation agreement that if and when he's contiguous, he will annex that property to the city.
So it might be, okay.
Mr. Borneman.
This area out there, it's currently county property, the Mill Race Crossing industrial plat. Once the water gets out there, it will become city. Am I incorrect or about that?
By city means city limits or city-owned property?
City-owned property.
No. It would still be owned by the county. The only thing we would own would be the utilities out there.
So, okay.
So-
Property taxes and all those taxes are going to the county. So I'm just trying to find out why they would want to foot the bill for this, but that's.
Well, I think they realize that the land's really useless unless they have utilities out there. And we have a company out there right now that needs water and sewer, and they can't expand without it.
And that's part of that American Rescue Plan. Is they've got the chunk of money coming in that will be able to get that accomplished. Otherwise, if they had to budget it, it's just never going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question, Manager Bucus. In the details on this, it says that 50% collection is through December 31st of 2028. So are they estimating it'll take a good 2 years to get it going, or should that actually be changed to actually say 5 years instead?
No, because right now it takes about 3 months to probably design the plans, take another 3 months for the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency to approve the plans, and then you got construction. So, and they have to get all the easements from the various property owners as well. So it's not going to, this is not a project that's going to happen overnight. And so we were trying to build in the 5 years, and And so, yeah, I guess to answer your question, yes, we're probably looking at 2 years before we have it turned over to the city.
And will we be doing the work, our city water department, or will that be done by a contractor?
No, that'll be contracted out.
Okay.
Chairman.
It doesn't affect any of our city projects that we've got on the board?
No.
Chairman.
Yes.
Manager Bucus, has there been any thought about any kind of oversight during this installation so that we know what's going into this before we take ownership of it?
I believe the county's hired firm Graham to do the design work, or they're planning to, and they're also our engineers, so I'm sure they'll be looking for our self-interest as well
Very
as the
good.
county's. I mean, it's in everybody's interest that the water and sewer lines get put in properly, whether we own it or the county owns it, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mayor.
Manager Bucus, can you explain what you would interpret those 50% fees to be over 5 years?
Yes, based on the information we received so far from Ingrown Farms, their water usage, since they'd be the first ones out there, we're looking at about $60,000 a year in fees that would be going to the county. We'd be keeping 60, they'd be getting 60. So over a 5-year period, we're probably looking at close to $300,000 to the county.
Chair.
Awesome. Mr. Borneman.
And so that amount doesn't concern you about the city not taking that in with?
If this project doesn't go forward, we're not getting the 60,000 ourselves. So I mean, it's money we don't have, and we're getting a $6 million investment, and then plus we'll be getting another storage facility, possibly well out in that area as well. So I mean, that's going to be another $2.5 million investment. So we could be up to $8.5 million by the time this project's over with. That we didn't put a penny in, but yet we've got a new service.
And one of the nice things is as well, and you know, as going out Lamb Road, is the airport's not far from there. So the ability to run water out there, air show, fire department, they have needs out there. All of those things will be positives as well. I see Mr. Zito has a comment.
And one of the other benefits that was just slightly alluded to was the fact that if any of these properties that are along the way to get out to the mill race properties, if they want to hook up, then they have to either annex or pre-annex. So it is a benefit to the city as far as the standpoint of protecting our borders and growing our borders, because this actually creates the carrot for the city to say to the property owners, annex in, because if you want to hook up to water sewer, that's the condition here. Before, without this project here, it's very hard to get property owners to want to annex into a community a lot of times, because they're saying, well, why would I want to annex in? I have to pay city taxes, this or that or the other, and stuff like that. So unless they want to voluntarily do it, you can't grow your borders. This is a mechanism that allows us to grow our borders at probably a little bit faster rate.
So, if a property owner has to annex in, why isn't Mill Race annexing in?
They're not Mill Race is not contiguous to the city limits at this time.
But neither are those properties.
Right. So, but they would have to enter into a pre-annex, correct, for the mill race?
Just, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just as the old agreement and this new agreement, you know, any property that's in the Mill Race project area, which the county owns the majority of that property, if they sell it or if they want to extend it onto their own property for their own use, they're going to have to sign a pre-annexation agreement. So eventually it'll come to us.
So the only difference between an annexation and a pre-annex is a city can only annex property that it's contiguous to. So think of it as a domino there. But the pre-annex allows you to say, it might be a domino that's down the road, but by entering into the agreement with them, it says when you do become contiguous, then you must annex in. So you're kind of teeing it up so that the dominoes can fall eventually in a row and get us all the way out there and grow the borders all the way out that way.
I have one question, and this is because this has affected me in the past. So I live at the end of a line. Director Boyer, you know, this is directed to you. What is the risk that we run with that amount of water and pressure needed to go out to, you know, these businesses, that we have the same types of breaks that I have on mine on Santa Fe?
Okay, well, I'll try to answer that. I don't know if we're going to have a tremendous amount of risk. It'll all be new water main with new facilities. So obviously there'll be valves and various infrastructure in the line, and that would, at worst case, keep any issues from happening to the city's main supply. So if you're asking me what's going to do if we have a large water main break out there, it would be primarily borne probably by the well and the infrastructure that's at no raise.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Busker.
I know the county's talking about the well and the storage out there, but have they committed to that they are doing that, or is that just that could happen someday?
It's in the current agreement that we have, it's in the proposed agreement that we have before you tonight, that they be responsible for storage and that, and we do have a verbal commitment from the county, nothing in writing. Again, like I said, that would be the next phase we'd be looking at.
I'd feel a little better if we saw that in writing, but go forward with it now.
So, again, that's under Section 3, responsibilities of the county.
Yes, Section 3D.
3D.
Yep, D. And for those of you that can't see that, it's the construct a water and sewer service system, which shall include but not shall be limited to all mains, measuring devices, storage tanks, pump stations, lift stations, water supply wells with and all equipment. So that pretty much takes care of what you asked.
Should there be timeframes in there? I mean, it says to do that, it says shall do this, but if there's no need for it, do they have to? If there is a need for it,
Oh, there will
what
be a
do they
need
have to do for it?
There will be a need for it. Otherwise, it's a system out there all by itself that gets stagnant water and everything else. And there's a break, then you got a business out there that would be basically out of business because they rely on water.
Okay, and so the funds that we're gonna go for that are also the ARP funds?
I don't know how the county plans on financing the next phase.
Because they had an issue with putting together a bike path, right?
Yep.
So you can see my concern here of constructing this. So I'm just wondering if there needs to be more concrete language about when that shall be constructed. And then my other point is the 50-50 split. At first it seemed reasonable, but now thinking about it, if there's an issue, I mean, that's going to be one heck of probably a difficult fix as compared to something in town. That number was the result of negotiations, I'm assuming, or is there?
Yes.
Their basis for it was they would just like 50% of it since they're putting up so much money?
Well, they're trying to recapture some of their costs in extending that line.
But their costs that's all grant money?
Yes.
Okay.
Their TIF district out there, or yeah, I guess it's considered a county TIF. It's not producing enough revenue for them to pay off their bonds that they had to issue in order to get that project started out there. So.
Go ahead.
Mr. Burberry. Listening to all this discussion, my question now is, are we actually voting on the finalization of the IGA, or are we voting to move forward and have further details and clarifications, timelines, specifications, either or.
The request, and I believe the motion was to move it forward to the next council
Was
meeting.
to move
for
it forward. Okay, thank you.
To the next cow?
No, to the next council meeting for
Council
action.
meeting, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I believe that was.
Yes,
Parker
it was
Ross.
to the 8/16 council meeting.
Just making sure.
One more question.
Yes, Alderman Ross.
Yes, direct views. Now, we run this line out there to Mill Crossing. It's for water and sewer. Who will collect the funds for the water and sewer?
They will be our customers. So anybody that's on that line would be our customers, so that we would collect the money.
So the city would collect the money for the water and the sewer that's being used out there?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? I guess that brings us to the point of a vote. Based on the discussion here, all in favor of moving item number 12 to the next council meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So now moving on to item number 13, discussion regarding 3-year extension on Oracle loan. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to take a slug of water here for a second.
Just water.
The Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, DCO, as it's commonly referred to, provided grant funding to the city of Freeport to establish a revolving loan fund many years ago. The purpose of the fund was to provide financial assistance to businesses locating or expanding within our city boundaries by issuing low-interest loans. In 2018, DCO informed us that they were discontinuing the revolving loan fund program across the state. At that time, any existing grant funds that were returned had to be returned to the state, and the state took on the administration of any remaining loans. There were 2 remaining loans at that time. One has been paid off, and the other one is the subject for tonight's discussion. In June of 2020, Oracle Development LLC requested an interest-only COVID modification for their last 6 months of their original redevelopment loan that was due to mature on August 1st of 2021. And this original loan was for the Raleigh office building. The city received a request from Oracle Development requesting us to renew their loan for a 3-year term at an interest rate of 2.5%. That's the current interest rate that they are paying on this loan. The primary tenant of the Raleigh office building has moved out, and the building is currently substantially left vacant. If the building is sold, the proceeds would be used to repay the loan to the city as a first lien holder. The total loan amount, the total loan principal to be repaid with this loan extension is $20,310.53. This was money that came from the state, and it's not city money, and staff request that the council approve the loan modification with Oracle LLC.
Any questions or comments?
Motion move it forward.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Busker and Misick. With that said, let's take a vote on item 13. All of those in favor of moving this forward, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Item number 14, discussion regarding final payment of Kahoy Pump Service Incorporated. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kahoy Pump Service was awarded a contract to drill, construct, and test a new well number 11, at the fields of Freeport. During the course of drilling, Kahoy experienced equipment malfunction and breakage. It took them several months for McCoy to retrieve the broken part out of the well, and in turn caused them to miss our deadlines for completion and testing. Based on Kahoy has asked us for, based on our current contract, we can charge contractual liquidated damages to Kahoy. And Kahoy has asked us for a reduction in the amount of liquidated damage that can be levied against them. In exchange, Kahoy will continue to house and maintain all the pumping equipment at their Duran, Illinois facility until we call them and ask them to install the equipment. And we're anticipating this project to be completed around August of 31st of 2022. The maintenance will continue. Kahoy has agreed to maintain the equipment by rotating the motor shaft on a monthly basis with supporting documentation. Additionally, the equipment will be covered by Kahoy's insurance while it's stored at their facility. Kahoy will also offer a 2-year extension warranty on the pumping equipment beginning at the date of startup. And McCoy Group will then mobilize to the site to begin the final disinfection and installation of the pump once we give them 2 weeks' notice to do so. We may need to, in order to proceed with this offer, we may need to have, I know we will have to have Illinois Environmental Protection Agency extend the contract to remain open until August of 2022. The city could levy as much as $111,500 in contractual liquidated damages against Kahoy. Our consulting engineer agrees with Kahoy that installing the submersible pump at this time would not be in the best interest, as the water plant still needs to be built. I am recommending that the City Council authorize staff to negotiate a revision to Kahoy's pump services contract to include all the points that I just mentioned, and that to lower the amount of the liquidated damages to $55,750. And I'm open to any questions.
Alderman Shadle.
It was kind of my understanding that they had issues outside of this piece getting lost down the well, that this was a new drilling machine, and they had some issues that they had factory people out that tried to rectify this, and they had a multitude of problems with this that were beyond their control, basically, too. Is that correct?
That's correct. They even hired a person from Florida to come up and help them get the project back online again.
I don't see that we need to be hardline on this date, you know, when they're offering up some reconciliation on top of the fact that it really was beyond their control, most of it. I would be in favor of it.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to move it forward.
I'll second that.
With that said, item number 14, the motion's been made and seconded to move it forward. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I will now turn it over to 14B, I guess, to Kirsten to discuss the news of the day.
Yep. So we're very excited to announce that we've gotten that FEMA has approved our pre-disaster mitigation grant award for $3.3 million. So our next step is to wait for IEMA to get us the local grant agreement. They said that would take about 2 to 4 weeks. I would put a buffer in there and probably say 4 to 6 based on how long it's taken to this point. But we're really looking forward to this. We had just sent out notification to residents last week saying we're still waiting. We aren't really sure when this is going to happen, but we're excited to be able to let people know that it is finally happening, and the wait was hopefully worth it for people. But I wanted to give a little bit of an overview of the time frame again, just as a reminder. So we'll be working in 3 phases. The project, we get 3 years from the date of execution, and so these phases will kind of be repeating this process over again. To start, we'll have to bid out all of the contractors. That'll take about a few months. And then once we get those contractors in, like the certified appraiser, then we'll work on getting the appraisals done for properties. First, we'll be doing those appraisals on occupied residences, and we'll be kind of moving in from the areas that are most impacted to the areas that are least impacted. Once we get through the occupied residences, we'll move out from there. And then IEMA has to approve each of the appraisals. That'll take about another month. It goes through their legal process. And then purchase offers and negotiations will probably take about a month as well. And then to do all of the title work, deed restrictions, and closing documents, asbestos and property inspections, and then relocation of the tenants. That'll probably be about a 3-month process for each person. 1 month for property acquisition closing, and then about 3 months for the relocation of tenants. So it will be a long process for everyone. It's not something that'll happen right away, but we'll be working with everyone to make sure that they know what's going on and that they're aware of all the steps. And yes, we're excited.
Sure.
Alderman Ross.
Yes, Director Hine, this is all the properties that's east of the Pecatonica River, correct?
Every property owner who signed up for the pre-disaster mitigation grant will be able to participate in this. So if someone didn't sign up for it, then they can't participate in this round. They will be able to for future grants. But we originally had about 140 properties signed up. Some of those were ultimately removed. There were a few people who changed their mind. They said they didn't want to participate. There were a few commercial properties that had to be removed by FEMA's direction because of potential hazardous concerns. So now we have 127 in total. 86 of those have structures on them. Some of those might be garages, so they're not all homes. And then we have 41 vacant lots.
So that's basically good news for the residents east of the Pecatonica.
Yes.
East side? That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations.
Yes, great job. Good work.
Yeah.
I think a round of applause is in order.
Any other comments? Move on to item number 16, public comments on any agenda or non-agenda items. Reminder, this is limited to 3 minutes per person. And do we have anybody who would like to speak? Tommy, the floor is yours, sir.
Jody Miller, you did a good job. And you don't forget to look at my Facebook about the lamp wheel fund. I talked to Liz about it, and she told me to mind you to look it up. Chris and Hine, you do a good job. So you're gonna let me know about Kmart update?
Yeah, I'll let you know. Thank you.
And Matt Summers, you do a good job working for that guy at the police department.
Thanks, Tom.
Anyone else? I guess that's the end of public comments, and now we move to what was item 15, executive session. Dovey?
Pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C2, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees.
Do we have a motion to enter into?
So moved.
Second.
Awesome. Roll call, please.
Monroe?
Here.
Ross?
Here.
Parker?
Here.
Busker? Shadle?
Here.
Mysick?
Here.
Berberet?
Yes.
And Borneman.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.